Thank you for coming. My name is Marco. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me and what I do. A few years ago, my family and I were in Rogashka Slatina. And there you walk around this tower, and somewhere there you also have a VR experience. Given that there were so many people that those girls couldn't take care of all the things, it didn't work. That is, nothing was on the screens. VR experience was probably there. Just at the entrance of the tower, you want to see it, pay at the front desk, and then someone goes up there to turn it on. Logistically, quite challenging. But at the entrance, we haven't remembered to ask. And when we were up, I thought it was a shame because they probably put quite a bit of money into this project, and it's basically pretty untapped because it's a bit logistically challenging. It's not enough to just put some technology like VR glasses. In this case, it's just left there. I'm from the company Escapebox, and I started with games and experiences back in 2014. With one of the first escape rooms in Ljubljana. But then I saw some potential in putting this concept of gamification, games on a larger range, outside of the room, in the area of parks, cities, museums. And since then, we've done some 30-plus experiences of escape room games, or on phones or physical ones, and we're trying to really work on solutions that make sense. And it's not only to tick off and put technology in there, but let's get an idea of whether we need technology at all. That is, XR, or extended reality, is some umbrella, some tree, so to speak, all the technology that is underneath it. Then we have virtual reality. It takes place on glasses. When I have my glasses up, we only see the world in the glasses. We can't see anything around us, so it's basically a virtual environment itself. Augmented reality, or AR, is basically a thing that we have on a phone, a tablet. That is, we are in this space, and with the phone, something appears to us additionally in this space. What about this MR in between? It's a mixed reality. There are already some very expensive glasses from Apple, where you can see the current world to which you can add something. A couple of pluses and minuses of each technology. Virtual reality, that is glasses, so that the user 100% of the time in another world of time, from this classroom, he can go basically anywhere. That is a very powerful first experience, because all of a sudden, we can jump out of that classroom onto some pirate ship. And what does that allow us to do? If we're in a certain castle, at some point, and we actually want to show some nice spot, a beautiful waterfall, a beautiful moment from nature that is remote, can also be mapped to this point. But what are the minuses? If, on the other hand, it's that we're in a different space. A plus is basically also a minus, because if we are somewhere in a beautiful place, landscape, nature of the castle, wherever it is, it's a pity to take people away from this atmosphere, the feeling of this place. Logistics is staff, just like we've talked about before. It's usually the first time people put their glasses up. It takes a couple of minutes to get used to them, and also someone has to show a little bit what they have to do, how they have to do it. And there has to be a person there. Someone has to make sure that they are full or that they are on the cable. Someone has to make sure they don't steal them. They can't just be put there. And that's all the logistics that they bring with them. So, an individual experience. That is, if I had glasses up, I could have the best time in the world here in this space. You would be bored. Part of it can be improved by letting you see what I see, but it's still quite an individual experience. A lot of times, many people feel nauseous in these experiences. These are, for example, some scenes where you move because we are physically in place or sitting. But in the scene, we're driving a car, and a lot of times someone feels nauseous, as well as the price of development. To show up in a completely different world, to make this world, is basically quite an expensive thing. Then we come to augmented reality, that is, the phone thing. To put it simply, it's basically that we're connected to real space, that everyone has their own phone, practically everyone has their own smartphone, and it's accessible. So basically, with the help of this phone, we get one research partner, a guide, a character who can guide us through the experience itself. It doesn't need a person, because also basically the instructions are much more simplistic. Let's say if we have a ruin far, far away in nature, we can actually see with a phone what it would have looked like, what it looked like at that time. The downsides, it isn't as inclusive as virtual reality, because we see everything or just one part of it in an absolutely different way. There are technical challenges. And now if we have an app in the Android store, or we have it in iOS store, someone has to download it. We need a signal. On the other side, if it's a web application, we also need a signal. And now there may not be a signal somewhere in nature. It's also nice to know this beforehand, before you go into it. And the question is, when to use what? And again, first, choose the experience, what you want people to feel, know, see, and then we get to the technology itself. Can technology really enhance the experience? Are the glasses that we are going to put in this space really the best way to present what we want to present? Because many times this is not the case with some experiences. But we would look at a few practical examples, because that is the easiest way for all of us to imagine. Last year we did one project, the reconstruction of the studio of Veno Pilon, a painter from China, and the idea that we should reconstruct his studio. And because we imagined, when we heard studio, we imagined that these are billboards, paints, brushes, everything is imposed. But when we got the pictures, his studio actually looked the way you see on the walls. That is, like a room. And now, to put that in the room itself, it would fall out. It wouldn't have authentic items. It wouldn't turn out okay.
And then we went along with the architect in the direction of showing that the photographs were enlarged, that they were on the wall as some kind of mural, to get a sense of his studio here. It was kind of a tender, we were subcontractors for that, and then for the VR experience. And condition in the tender was that we had to do a 360-degree capture of this studio and put it on VR glasses, and it's basically going to be an experience then. And we, who were looking at it and thinking that we were going to do a 360-degree picture of this space, we'll see, we'll put it on the glasses, but it basically doesn't make sense, because we're in this space. We see this space, which is now the point of these glasses, in this. And now the tenders. We had to take into account absolutely what was written in the tender, because that's the way it is. But we were thinking about what we could do additionally that was actually a plus of this technology. Because if we move this to a fair that is happening in Berlin, and someone would show it, it makes sense. As soon as it's happening in the studio itself, then the question is how it makes sense. And we've talked about what are some of the additional things that we can actually do. And what have we done? That is, you can already see some of the 3 personal items of the painter in the beginning. That is, it was a kind of watch that is authentic. He used it in the beginning. We added a mouse. We added audio quotes on how the painter spoke in a couple of languages. We've added music that also fits kind of on that level, as well as additional information alongside these pictures of his works. And these are all things that have done at least a little favor to the VR. Now the experience is such that it makes sense to put your glasses up. On the other side, if we were just going to go for what the requirement actually was, it would be totally pointless. Another augmented reality example is the Russian chapel. It is an area of the Triglav National Park, and interventions there were not possible. And the desire was to present the story of the Russian chapel itself, how it evolved from how the horses grazed there, how the soldiers built. And we basically have 6 scenes. A certain cable car was being reconstructed, which was actually here nearby according to the photos. And what we think is a very big plus is basically that there is a Russian chapel on the site. This church is locked most of the time. If you're lucky, you get there, and the caretaker opens the door for you. But you can't order your visit to see what it's like inside. And with this technology, we scanned the interior and actually showed it. And that's the way I feel about what the real advantage of this technology is. That we were able to show one thing that is invisible to one person or group who comes there to see. Now another 2 examples, which could also have gone in the direction of technology, a film on your own land.
I think the most watched Slovenian movie, this is the case. I think 2019 is something like that, are these photos that I was looking for afterwards. And it's kind of a thematic trail where you look at the scenes, where the film was filmed. And now, if we imagine these scenes, I don't know how many, but I know that in the film, this bridge is actually blown up. And this is one of the great scenes in the film itself. If we were to go to do this kind of thematic journey now, a lot of times we could actually think about putting VR glasses there. It doesn't make sense to do anything in nature. And here they went in a very simple way. That is, it is a kind of board that looks like binoculars. And when you're in that location, there's some text below, what happened to this rail? And if you connect that thing to a YouTube clip from that movie, all of a sudden you gave someone away. You showed that experience. It's easier to imagine. You got involved. And also financially, it wasn't as much money. You don't need staff to make sure that this experience can be sold. And another example from Sevnica Castle. They also have a shot. They have a night tour of the castle. They say it is their best product. And what did they do? Basically, they turn the lights out. Everyone gets one candle to walk around the castle with. You have one guide, and you get to know the countess and the count through the tour. And if we imagine such a castle, most of the castles are imposing pieces, and you walk around them. It's an experience that has a big effect, but on the other hand, it was pretty easy to do again. What is the point of technology? That we basically get a little feel for this experience. We meet the countess. And yes, because a lot of times it's if we just buy glasses or if we just make an experience, it's not enough, and you also have to think about whether this video they made is interesting when you watch it. It's easier to imagine, and there are more chances that you'll go for this experience. And another example from New Zealand. Again, one filter for Instagram that you basically need, where in New Zealand you should go more than not. It's kind of an advertising campaign, but I just want to show you this way so maybe at some point you can also make, if it's a QR code or if it's a website. And it's again using technology in a little bit of a simplified way with some result that can take you further. That is, artificial intelligence is everywhere, or is very popular, and will be even more so. And what it allows us to do is basically that one character, now I've had a couple of extreme cases here because they're copyright and so on. I'm so excited to imagine. It could be that.
France Presherin.
Again, a little bit related to Ure, he said, this is a character. It can be some caricature, an animal, whatever it is. It can ask you at the beginning, oh, what kind of guiding would you have? Or would have fun? Or would have a style of Joey from Friends? Or whatever. And you can even take a whole tour. You probably already know this for the most part. I only gave one slide because basically everything you know. It can help us create the content itself, customize the experience. We have already said that it guides the user, also similarly facilitates the text, helps with bureaucracy. And if we go to look a little more at the movies and the books, for hours, we're following that person, the situation, the event. We're rooting for this character. Some challenge happens. And in the end, we really want to go to that location and experience it. One series about a London gang about 100 years ago, and we go to Birmingham. When I was in Birmingham, I went to see exactly that, whereas a Peaky Blinders tour. And because I wasn't hit by any Peaky Blinders tour commercial, but I connected, I was going there. I'm there and I'd go and have a look. And most people don't want to be some passive participant, but the main character. And I would have attached myself to murder mystery a little more, because it's exposed it that way. You need a couple of actors to write a role somewhere, and all of a sudden you can sell lunch, dinner, instead of for 30 euros for 100 euros. I would also like to touch on the tenders themselves. And if you have these things written, some 10 potential ideas, once the tender comes in, you won't be looking for something by force because you already have a lot of work to do somewhere in progress. And if there is a tender coming, let's give something a quick thought to win. If you look at your list, you can end up with something that really makes sense for your destination, and it's not put there by force. A lot of times you have to be the applicant, but I just want to say that these experiences that we do, if we are realistic, usually bring a little more work to tourism. Having one new product is good for them. And when we make this product a solution, I wanted to say that these things are wanted. Usually the problem is financing, and the funding is that it lasts. I mean, it takes a couple of years, I don't know, because the first time we meet, and then the matter takes about 2 years to become real, because now we know what you're doing.